everyone. Welcome back to Warming the Bench. It's Bev and Daniela here. Bev, how are you today?
Well, I'm all right, Dan, but getting a little bit worried about these wildfires. We had
I
one
know.
about half a mile away from us in a recycling
Mm,
centre, of all
mm,
places.
I know. I heard about that one. Unfortunately, it's a common problem that it seems to be everywhere across Europe, across obviously this country in the United States. It's getting
Yeah.
very concerning. I think it's alarm bells ringing all over the world, unfortunately, with these fires.
Yes, I think it's a bigger picture going on here, Dan. It's got certainly got to be climate change. I was listening to somebody
Mm,
else talking about it and said, well, this is probably, hold on to this, because it's probably going to be one
mhm,
of the coolest summers now you'll remember,
mm. That's crazy. That is really, really
isn't it?
crazy when you think about it, given how warm it has been in a lot of places. But if any of you are listening in and you're in an affected area, our thoughts are with you for sure. And hopefully
Mm.
we can start working closer together on trying to limit the amount of damage from these fires. I don't think we'll stop them, but we'll definitely try to limit them. But on to maybe some slightly happier things. Bev, what do we got going on today? We got a few things to talk about at the top of the episode.
Well, we certainly have. So at the top of the episode, we want to have a quick word about WAFCON, pros and cons.
Hmm.
And then we're going to talk about
Yeah.
Infantino, but obviously slanted towards the women's game because we're discussing the women's game. And then we're talking
Yeah.
about women's players, incentives, foundations that
Mhm.
players are set up, investment in community, all kinds of things around that, but then linking that on to retirement, or is it retirement? It's on a timeline, but we'll also be
Mm,
considering big questions, wider picture.
yeah.
Yes, Dan?
Mm, absolutely. Yep, that sounds great. Good episode. I had a couple of great notes from us. But you mentioned it right at the top there at WAFCON. So it finished yesterday, Sunday the 16th, and Cameroon are the new winners. They're first-time winners as well, which is crazy. This was a completely new final in terms of the opponents. What did you think of the whole tournament overall, Cameroon being new winners, and what does it kind of mean for African women's football, given how everything has gone on with WAFCON?
I think it's the next area or space within a women's game that's going to lift its profile, despite the pros
Hmm.
and cons of trying to access and watch the games. Now, there was a lot of
Mm,
controversy around it. There were lots of challenges, but even so, Dan, there
yeah.
were big stars to come out of this, particularly the Cameroon footballer, goalie, I would say. What do you reckon?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah, she had a blinder of a tournament, didn't she? She's
Yeah.
just fantastic. And you know what, Bev? I looked her up. She's like 22 years old, which is
Is
kind of crazy.
she? Gosh.
That's she's quite young, so that just tells me that there's a massive career potentially ahead of her because she is so young and she's not even remotely in her peak yet. We know goalkeepers tend to peak in their late 20s, early 30s, so she's got a long way to go. And if she's pulling out performances like this, I can only imagine 5, 6 years down the road what she's going to be like.
Yeah, really exciting, very dynamic goalie, I thought. But imagine I
Hmm.
watched some of the games and they were just
Hmm.
fast, furious, fun, and
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Really fast-paced stuff. I
Hmm.
enjoyed it, Dan. I really did for the games I got to watch.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you're in a group, aren't you, when you're waiting for the games to start and everybody's in the group
Hmm.
chat and they're saying, I hope this is, not going to be disappointing that CAF TV are not going to be able to show us. And we got to that point and the game didn't come on and it was ever so
Yeah.
disappointing. It really was. What about you, Dan? What were your
Hmm.
challenges in your part of the world?
Yeah, I definitely couldn't watch it for a little while. I was able to finally find a way to do that through a streaming platform I already had. Didn't realize it was on there because, again, the advertising was really poor. We talked about this. The initial tournament was canceled and rescheduled for this time in the summer, and that led to a lot of challenges in and of itself, lack of promotion and visibility onto it. But aside from all of that, I did enjoy the games that I got to watch, and like you said, some incredible footballers. That is really hopefully going to raise the profile. And these types of tournaments really allow for these players to get a little bit more of a spotlight individually as well. So it kind of puts them in the shop window a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of leagues have been scouting from this WAFCON because there's a lot to scout, and some of these players that we've maybe been watching the last couple of weeks might be popping up on some clubs. Maybe not necessarily this transfer window, potentially in January, depending on where they're currently playing or what their current situation is. But yeah, overall disappointed by the lack of promotion and visibility and just the overall like lack of care that went into this. But on the footballing side, I really enjoyed what I got to watch.
Yeah, I same here. It really, really was a very engaging tournament for what I was able to watch. Yeah, great. Hopefully the
100%.
opportunities that you've
Absolutely.
mentioned will come from it. Yeah, fantastic. Dan, shall we
Hmm.
move over to
Yeah.
Infantino? Very, very I, I got the feeling there's another
Yeah.
characters and controversies. Bit
Yeah.
there's a
Maybe
lot
more
of
of a
them, Dan.
controversy than anything else. There's so many of them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Um, a lot of people, it's particularly over in this country, have
Hmm.
asked for him to leave, have actually said, especially the government or government representatives like MPs in this country have said, no, we don't
Yeah.
have any confidence in him. We would like him to leave. But Dan, as
Hmm.
always,
Hmm.
we try to be fair, and we try
Hmm.
to be balanced. So can I bring that in to begin with and then start to take
Sure.
apart, uh, whatever the point
Sure.
of view happens to
Do,
be? Yeah,
do you
shall
want
I
to
shall I
maybe
start
touch
with it?
on, yeah,
Go
do you
on.
want to maybe just touch on what the whole controversy was to begin with, or do you want me to kind of just brief it, in case anyone's not completely aware of
Yeah,
why
would you
everyone's
go
calling
for
for
it,
this
Dan?
man's head?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for anyone who's not aware, it was quite a big story. So even if you're not a huge football fan, you may have probably heard about this. So a couple weeks ago, there was a plan that was had already been in motion that was made public that Gianni Infantino, who's the president of FIFA, was there was an investment plan to sell off stakes in the revenue streams of the World Cup tournament. So to private equity firms and private equity investors. So this was made public, and immediately everyone's alarm bells went off because FIFA in itself is not without its own controversies already. And this just seemed like another cash money grab. And what Infantino has been accused of doing as well is, in order to get support for this plan, he apparently um, gave cash incentives to smaller football associations in exchange for their support. So almost it seems like a bribe, right? I'll give you this if you support my plan. And this caused a massive uproar in the footballing community. UEFA, CONCACAF minus Mexico because they've decided to break ranks. And the Asian Football Confederation have all come out strongly against it. UEFA went as far as to bring a boycott into the mix. The plan was foiled, so they're not moving forward with it. However, a lot of associations are still calling for Infantino to step down. And UEFA has said that their boycott is still in place because they are not satisfied with how this was handled, the lack of accountability, and all that moving forward. So that's just a very brief synopsis of what happened.
Diving into that in a little bit further with more detail, it's the assets, isn't it, in terms of both the World
Hmm.
Cup, the men and the women's game. It's the assets in terms
Hmm.
of hospitality, TV rights,
Yeah.
sponsorship, all of those kind of things. A little bit worrying,
Hmm.
and we are about to explore that one, Dan. So again, I'll
Hmm.
say fair and balanced. It's a complicated relationship, really. Nothing is ever straightforward, is it? It's a
No, it's
complicated,
never is.
no, it's a complicated relationship in terms of the woman's game because of where it is in
Hmm.
terms of its development. So we're looking at,
Hmm.
as much as you want to have a go and be critical, FIFA has increased the investment in the women's game along with the prize money.
Hmm.
It's expanded the
Hmm.
Women's World Cup from 24 to 32 teams.
Mhm.
It's established new development programs and set ambitious targets for participation. And it's working towards
Mhm.
60 million female players globally by 2027. And there's a women's
Mhm.
development program has been expanded. So it's a lot. There's a lot being invested in terms of the women's game. But I think the tension is, Dan, where we are
Mhm.
is always this, it's always the balancing scales, Dan, isn't it? Is this about
Mhm.
saying we are empowering the women's game, or is this
Mhm.
part of FIFA's under Infantina's steerage, part of
Mhm.
FIFA's wider commercial and political portfolio? Thoughts?
Mhm. Um, I have thought a lot about this, and I'm going to go with the latter because in the proposal for this private investment fund or whatever it was called, the women's game was only mentioned one time. It was a massive document, hundreds of pages of a plan, and the women's game was mentioned once. So that tells me two things. FIFA still is not viewing the women's game as profitable enough to include it in this. But what this also does is this entire plan is directly in conflict with what FIFA claims to be a not for profit organization. Now, we know that's not true. They made billions of dollars off of just the last World Cup alone a couple months ago
Yeah,
or last month. So
yeah,
we know that that's not true. However, in the way that this was going to go about, it was going to say, okay, you're a X billionaire, whatever it might be, you can buy a stake in this, and we're just going to sell it off, and we're going to bribe people in the process to support this plan. So it was a very unethical way of going about continuing business at a rate that was even far beyond the FIFA line in the sand of what they've drawn to be, their own line of, okay, maybe we're not necessarily a not-for-profit organization, but we also cannot operate as like a private hedge fund, basically, because that's what it was going to turn out to be. So unfortunately, it is the latter because once you start bringing in those things of, I will give this in exchange for this support, you've now broken the ranks of what it means to operate as this organization, this governing body of football, because then it's, well, you see now, I just mentioned CONCACAF. Mexico has broken ranks with CONCACAF because they are getting something in exchange. What does
yes.
that mean? Are their women's program being supported in this exchange? Probably not, because there was so little mention in the original document to begin with. So all of the FIFA initiatives are great, but unfortunately, in this scenario, I don't believe it would have actually benefited them in any way, shape, or form for the women's game.
No, I absolutely agree with you, to be honest with you, because let's drill into the culture. It all starts with the culture, Dan, because with the culture comes a
Mhm.
mindset, and with a mindset comes actions and behaviors. Would you agree?
Correct.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So, I mean,
Mhm.
looking at the bigger picture, there are around 211 members, and of that, only around 10
Mhm.
are actually sat on the
Mhm.
board, yeah, or actually in
Yeah.
positions
Yeah.
of authority or being able to yield power or some kind of control or exercise some kind of influence. And that is not enough, Dan.
Mhm.
Again, it's all
Mhm.
constructed around the men's game, the men's World Cup, the men's tournaments, the men's stadiums.
Exactly.
It's still that template, to be quite frank with you. And
Mhm.
although looking at the figures here, for the World Women's World Cup of 2023, Dan, it generated a
Mhm.
570 million. Is expected to generate
Mhm.
1 billion in 2027. But in
Right.
terms of comparing that to the men's game, the World Cup for the men's game, that's small
Mhm.
fry. It's nothing. And you usually find
Mhm.
that the women's game is collateral damage in comparison to the men.
Correct. And it's already in that unfortunately in that mode, and this would have probably made it worse given the types of investors and what they were looking to sell off and how they were looking to sell off. Because remember, when you sell off revenue streams now, the people who are buying that are in charge of how what that looks like
Yes,
also. So where's that
yes,
money going into? what does it go to support? If you're selling off that revenue stream to a private investor in the United States, for example, does that go into their footballing programs? And how much
Yes.
of it goes into the footballing programs. You know what I mean? So there's so much of
Yeah.
it. And I also just want to make mention of this. We always talk about, and like you just said, the women's game unfortunately becomes collateral damage in a lot of this, and it's not well supported, even though the funding and all that has been increased. But we know because of that lack of mention that it wasn't as well documented and seen as the forefront of this investment plan. But there was two women, Laura McAllister, who is the UEFA vice president, and Lisa Clavins, who's the president of the Norwegian Football Federation. Two women were actually the ones who drove the pushback and the boycotts from UEFA. So two women who are in positions of power at UEFA and the head of the Norwegian Football Federation said, "Hold on a minute, this is bad for football in general." They weren't even just speaking from the women's game, excuse me. They were saying this is a terrible idea across the board for X, Y, Z reasons. So it just shows that women are needed in the room when decisions are being made, because they're seeing everything from every angle, not just one angle or one side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, football was always meant to be for just the ordinary. I don't want that to
The
sound
ordinary
derogatory.
person.
The ordinary person. It was
No,
meant to
no, no.
be accessible for
Yeah.
the ordinary person to go to the stadium and
Hmm.
enjoy a ruddy good game of football. But that's being taken away.
Exactly.
It's the balance is shifting. And again, the collateral damage is
Exactly.
always the women's game, especially at the point where
Hmm.
it is now. It's pivotal,
Exactly.
and we want it to move forward, not
Hmm.
backward. But I mean, I think
Exactly.
linking up to what you said
Hmm.
earlier, Dan, is that something a giveaway was the Saudi Arabia episode? Can you remember that? The Saudi Tourism
Mm.
Authority being a major sponsor, or that
Vaguely.
can you, yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
mooted, and they got criticism from
Hmm.
that, from the coaches, managers, players, and then it was quickly stopped.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but the thing is about it though, FIFA is there's a danger that FIFA's going to say, well, we
Hmm.
believe in the women's team, we believe in the future of the women's game. After all, we've created more teams, there's more investment, there's more broadcasting deals, there's more prize money, there's more commercial
Hmm.
revenue, more global visibility. And can they feasibly
Yeah.
hide beyond that? Well, it's a case, isn't it, Dan? It's a case. You can't say
Yeah.
they haven't done that, but what's the
They
real
can.
reason?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, the questions of this, right? And if you also look at who was potentially being bribed for their support are countries and associations that do not support their women's associations very well, either their women's programs, excuse me. So there's a lot, a lot going on there. But can I just make a funny joke, not joke, but a little funny point on the Saudi Arabia thing? Do you know what country is not supporting this private investment plan? The Football Association of Saudi Arabia.
Ah, oh,
They
that's
came out against it, which was genuinely hilarious.
that's irony in motion for you.
It absolutely is. I laughed when I saw that. I had to say, it was like, if anyone I thought would be supporting this, they absolutely are not, which is hilarious. So there's that.
Oh dear, oh dear. That's interesting, that one.
Yeah,
Are we able to move on then,
definitely.
Dan, to looking at investments
Yes.
and incentives in all those kind of things, in opportunities? Because what I want
Initiatives,
to
yeah.
put first, because
Hmm.
we're seeing a timeline, a very clear timeline, I think, Dan, in terms of the development and evolution of the women's game. So I would
Hmm.
say that we're not simply going to we're not going to pluck particular players and say, oh, Alessio Russo has this foundation, although we will do that, put it in the context of the
Yeah.
bigger picture. So let me
Hmm.
say the bigger picture is this, perhaps. The pioneers opened the door. Today's players
Hmm.
walked through it. Today's
Hmm.
players are opening more doors. The next generation will walk through them. Today's players will
Hmm.
eventually become question mark ellipsis. Can I leave it at that and then make a start?
Sure.
So if we look at
Hmm.
the incentives and um, the investment that lots and lots of players have made, especially the lionesses in this country, I've got to dig
Hmm.
out that once upon a time when players retired, I'm afraid it wasn't a
Hmm.
very, very good picture because most of them ended up going to nothing. So 52% of
Hmm.
them, when they retired, had very little to go to. They actually ended up in poverty and they ended up struggling. So
Hmm.
are we getting to a point now of not having, what can I say, retirement, but transition? Is it that
Hmm.
are we getting to that point and creating an ecosystem? Because what I'd like to pull out here, Dan, is not just like the Lionesses saying, right, after their Euros 2022 win, they went straight to the
Hmm.
government with an open letter and they said, right, this is fantastic, but this is not a legacy. This is a great win for us. And we've raised the
Hmm.
profile over this tournament. But what is the
Yeah.
legacy? Because, okay, young girls and maybe even young boys that are cheering the women's game and enjoy it too. The young girls are looking
Hmm.
at Leah Williamson and say, okay, she's inspiring to me, but what's the legacy? What does that mean at
Yeah.
grassroots levels? Can
Hmm.
changing rooms, are they accessible? Are they thinking about periods and, body comfort and wearing the right kit? Is it handy downs? Do we have the right pitch to play on? Is it astroturf? Is it going to
Hmm.
hurt us? Will it cause injuries? And so on and so on. So we've got that
Hmm.
aspect to it. But I also want to draw out the skills, Dan, because when somebody like the Lionesses, like Tooney and Rooney, I was going to say Tooney and Rooney, it's because it rhymed.
Almost rhymes. Yep.
Tooney and Russo, um, and all the other players. It's not just about playing. You can draw on leadership, resilience,
Hmm.
teamwork, decision making, discipline, communication, performing under pressure.
Hmm.
And they're all transferable skills that can be used in
Hmm.
any industry. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, they are. And I think this is why you see so many footballers in England and abroad getting involved in their communities in different with different initiatives for this regard because they identify that. And I think when you look at legacy, you will look at, yes, the Lionesses won two back-to-back Euros, and that's going to be incredible. And, Leah Williamson will probably be the most successful captain, male or female, your country has produced. But the legacy of those women and the women that came before them, because like you said, they opened doors, right? The doors slowly started to creep open for every generation that comes through. But their legacy will be exactly what they're doing to set up football not only as a sustainable means of a career, but also what did it lead to? What did it do for greater society? Because we know that girls get out of sport very easily because of their confidence. And that takes away, like you said, so many other skills because it's not just about sport. Like anybody can probably kick a ball and become a professional footballer is very few amount of people will do that. But it's what else is learned, as you mentioned, in the process of being in a team, in the process of losing, in the process of winning, like the skills that you get from that, the socialization aspect, the social emotional intelligence you pick up. And like you said, all those things are transferable into greater society. So their legacy is really going to be, oh, yes, we empowered a bunch of girls, but we also set up streams and pathways to ensure that these are things that they can take beyond football if they choose maybe not to be a football player or maybe they just don't make it, whatever it might be, right? Because that happens as well.
Mm, absolutely. I mean, I just do want to drill in to some individuals that are kind of
Hmm.
laying a foundation and then passing the baton
Yeah.
into the future generation. So I'm very interested. I would love to hear some of what, individuals in your country, Dan, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, given that some of the viewers have
Hmm.
asked, for to be expanded a
Yes.
little bit beyond the WSL. So I'm thinking about
Hmm.
Karen Carney. I mean, she was a
Hmm.
footballer. She's a broadcaster and a very
Yep.
good broadcaster. She's a
Hmm.
businesswoman because recently she's invested in Birmingham City.
Hmm.
So, and they've
Yep.
recently been promoted to the top flight. And she was also
Hmm.
involved in policy initiative, wasn't she? Where she was helping the
Yep.
government. State of the Game or something like that, I think
Hmm.
it was called. So she's a
The
very
Carnegie Review.
well-known, yeah, that's it. She's a very
Hmm.
well-rounded individual from the platform of starting off as a
Hmm.
player. It's fantastic. And another one is
Hmm.
Alex Scott, and I have a lot of admiration for
Yeah.
Alex Scott. Again, she was a player.
Hmm.
She's been subject to an awful lot of abuse over the years. She's written a
Hmm.
book, so she is an
Yeah.
author, and she's got a fantastic book out there about her life.
Hmm.
But it's very,
Hmm.
she's had a lot of adversity that she's had to overcome, but
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
positive, very mind positive, and how she's used her mind for positive
Hmm.
thinking. Then she
Yeah.
was a broadcaster, well, she still is a broadcaster and a presenter, but
Hmm.
she is very visible within the women's game. Can I pass the baton over to you, Dan, for your particular
Yeah.
players?
Absolutely. I'm just gonna just to make a little note on Alex Scott. She's lovely, by the way. So my last trip, sorry, my first trip to London a few years back now, or no, maybe it was the second one. I actually took a little journey. I betrayed my Chelsea side, and I took a little journey into North London, and I was in Hampstead Park, that really big, beautiful park out there, and she was with her partner, and I walked past them, and I was like, that definitely was Alex Scott. Like I recognized her immediately, and I kind of just turned around, and she had turned around as well because they had someone's dog with them, and I just looked at her and I said, "Hi, I'm just a really big fan," and she was so lovely. We chatted for maybe 5 minutes. I've never actually told anybody that because I didn't want to just betray her privacy on that day, but
Yeah.
she's absolutely lovely. So I can imagine she's well regarded in the women's football community. First of all, she was an incredible player, but also just what she's brought to the game, and she seems like a lovely person as well. So little tidbit on that one.
Oh,
But on my end of it, yeah, a little insight.
claim to
On my
fame,
side of it,
Dan.
there's a couple. I know, claim to fame. I could just say that I met her in Hampstead Park. um, on on my side of it, a couple of people I wanted to highlight. So first and foremost, Khadijah Buchanan, she's Canadian international and she plays for Chelsea. But here at home, she actually just recently launched the KB3 Foundation. And Khadijah grew up in a single parent household, a single mom specifically. And so this foundation, she actually launched this with the help of FIFA. So it was part of a FIFA program for players to get involved with starting any initiatives in their own communities. And what this does is it creates support and pathways for single moms with daughters specifically. So they've kind of made it very specific to mothers and daughters because this was also her experience growing up. And what it does is through football, right here in just the Greater Toronto area, it helps support daughters and single moms through mentorship programs, life skills programs, but it does it through the football. So what you just said about that socio economic side of it, the social emotional intelligence side of it, that life skills, they aim to do all of that through the football, and also they have other resources and stuff that can help support mothers and daughters in this regard. And this is kind of a new thing for this community. They do have other support programs, but they're more broad footballing programs. So this is specifically for mothers and daughters, single mothers. So I thought this was a really cool initiative. And Kadisha's been here, and she's been at all of the little events that have been happening. She was here all summer and took part in those. So I thought it was really cool to see her. She's played abroad for the majority of her career, but coming back to where she was born and raised and really created to bring this program here. And then the other two that I need to highlight initially is Christine Sinclair and Diana Matheson. Diana Matheson specifically, she's the entire reason, honestly, that the Northern Super League exists. Diana, for years, identified we do not have a domestic league at home. We are limiting the pathways at home. We have to rely on players to go overseas to play. And she said enough is enough and rallied everybody to make sure that this was a sustainable league. The salary is pretty good across the league, that there are different the types of supports that are needed to have a fully professional league. And what she did really well was looked across the world and picked up little things from every league that made the most sense and integrated them into the Northern Super League. So we have all of that women's health support. We have a decent salary. We have player autonomy in terms of moving around and being transferred, excuse me, the right types of facilities, all of the above. And that's something that being a player, she noticed, excuse me, that we needed, but also being able to look at leagues around the world and make sure that we're creating the right opportunities at home as well to make sure that those pathways exist so that we don't have to force players to go overseas. And make sure that they are fully professional and they support the individual first and then the footballer. And the only other one I
Oh,
wanted to speak about also was Christine Sinclair. Yeah, Christine Sinclair. She owns a part of the Vancouver Rise, which is one of our teams. So she has invested in this league as well for how much she believes in what its potential is.
that's amazing. Yeah, they're leaving legacies,
Mhm.
isn't it? I think collectively it
Yeah.
adds up to a
Hmm.
woman's football legacy, not just individuals. It just adds up, doesn't it? It's a
Hmm.
culmination effect.
Completely. Can I just touch on one more? Because it kind of
Yep.
fits into this boat. So when I was doing a little bit of research on who is kind of involved in these initiatives, and I don't think a lot of people know because it's a little bit outside of Europe mostly. But now that Alexia Putellas is in the WSL, this might get highlighted. She has the More Than 11 Foundation because she wears the number 11. And what it actually does is they've now been operating in Mexico, in Colombia, and they're going to be going to the Dominican Republic, and they have one in Spain. And they're little football academies, basically. And what they do is they go into communities and they work with municipalities as well. They recently signed an agreement with a city in Mexico with like the mayor's office, so like the community, the municipality is involved in it as well. And what they do is they get professionals and they aim to support the development of young girls, bringing them into the sport, but supporting them as the whole individual. Again, a more holistic approach to football. So they get the footballing side of it, but then they also get the emotional and physical and mental health aspects of it as well, should they need it, because a lot of these communities are underdeveloped or underprivileged in terms of socioeconomics. Maybe they have family issues, like those sorts of things. So it was a really cool thing when I was looking into it, and they're going to keep expanding. And I really do like that they're partnering with municipalities and community supports as well to bring these little academies into these communities.
That's amazing. Can I talk about Lucy
It is.
Bronze? Now, Lucy
Yes,
Bronze is
please.
Lucy Bronze Scholarship Award. Have you heard of that, Dan?
Mm, I have not. No.
No, there you are, see. And that's
Mm,
designed to give a young UK female footballer a major educational opportunity alongside football. So what she did, she created a
mm,
scholarship providing a fully funded boarding school place
mhm.
worth more than £100,000. So
Oh, wow.
that girl, she gets an education
Mhm,
as well as an education and pathways into football. And I thought that was absolutely amazing.
mhm. Oh, that's incredible. And on Lucy Bronze, um, actually, we'll touch on her in a second, but that kind of reminds me of Lauren and Reese James have the Reese and Lauren James Cup, which is
Yes,
from the youth level. I don't know if you heard about that one as well.
I have.
So it's like an international youth football tournament, which I thought was a really cool way to integrate their love of football and their family into one thing, which was really nice.
Yeah, it is. It's fantastic, to be honest with you. Another one is Farah Williams. Now, did you
Mm,
know that during her career, well, not during her career, but in her lifetime, she has actually found
hmm.
herself homeless. So
Yes,
she has, yeah. Did you know that, Dan?
I did. Yeah, I've heard her speak about it a couple of times. She's got quite an interesting story and career on the back of finding herself homeless as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So she's investing back. into the
Hmm.
community on the basis of
Hmm.
her life experience. So all of them, they're all doing quite different things, aren't they? But like I said, it's the cumulative effects of this. It's adding up.
Yeah, completely. And it's like there's a lot of obviously football driven initiatives, but a lot of people like Farah, for example, will also dive into their own experiences and do unfootball related things, things that have nothing to do with football,
Yeah.
just because of their own life experiences and maybe the supports that they maybe weren't able to access or maybe just didn't exist because of the times or whatever it might be, and bring kind of awareness to that. Because obviously, when we support our communities as a whole, we have healthier communities, we have happier communities, and you're more likely to get people engaged in things like sport. So it kind of all leads back to sport eventually.
I want to draw some bigger questions out now, Dan, sticking to the actual incentives and opportunities and investments, etc., that
Hmm.
all these individual players are making and collectively, like the Lionesses, and in Canada and across the world. Um, the thing is there an expectation that they should be role models and that they should do this to leave a legacy? Is that something that we should expect of them, or is it their choice? What's your thoughts on this, Dan?
Um, I have two kind of ways on this. I think personally it should be their choice, but I do
Mm,
think that the expectation is that as a footballer, as a female footballer, I should say, that you should be doing more. Because as we've said a million times, they're just not responsible for playing football right now. There's a greater responsibility off the pitch, and for better or worse, that has been put on players um, to continue and build upon what's already in place, because the game is still at a a little bit of a sensitive point that it needs to be advocated for at so many greater levels, and that does happen to fall on the players a lot.
yeah, I agree. The one thing I would say, kind of balance it out a bit and being a little bit realistic, that
Hmm.
these players do fantastic things.
Hmm.
I simply enjoy watching
Yeah.
them alone. For me, that brings me
Yeah.
great joy, Dan. And then we expand it
Hmm.
out a little bit that they're all doing these individual things and collectively as well, in terms of
Hmm.
standing on the back, on the
Initiatives.
shoulders of the
Yeah.
past, and now they're in creating these incentives, and this is also building for the future of future players, etc. But out in the
Hmm.
public realm, we've always got, and you know what? I'm saying this on the back of Jason R. Day. You might have heard of that,
Mm.
Dan. I don't know.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
must be realistic about our expectations of anybody in the public realm.
Hmm.
When you look at
I agree.
somebody, there's always more multi-dimensional aspects to their story. So I know
Hmm.
when we looked at
Hmm.
controversies and characters, we looked at Chloe Kelly, and she gets a lot of stick.
Hmm.
I think she's like Marmite. You
Hmm.
either love her or you loathe her. But in essence, no, but it's true, Dan. I've heard it. I've heard a lot of
Yeah.
criticism come her way, but she is also a
Hmm.
hero to a lot of young people and women across the board. But the point is, she is everything. She is everything. She's a dynamic,
Hmm.
as are all the players. However, they may be magnificent on the pitch. They may be magnificent in terms of what they do, but they may go home, slam the door, and take it out on their partners, because we can all do
Yeah.
that. But I just want to be
Hmm.
realistic about it, and that there is an
Yeah.
everyday aspect to it, that we build these people up and seem to get
Hmm.
something that they're above and beyond being humans, and they are not. I just felt there was
Yeah.
an ethical thing around this, Dan, that I felt needed to be said, given the
Yeah.
situation and the climate over here at the moment.
Hmm. Yeah. It's true. It's, humans are flawed, right? We're all flawed in our own ways. We all have our great parts. We all have our maybe not so great parts, and which I would consider flaws. Um, And unfortunately, sports figures just in general do get that hero complex, right? And it's
Mm,
it's always struck me as a little bit odd because yes, sports people in general, I'm just going to use this in general because honestly it does apply to everybody. Yes, they can be seen as this great figure and so forth, but they are people like everybody else, and they have their negative sides. So an interesting balance that has to be struck as to how we look at people, what their legacy are, what they do off the pitch, and that's fantastic. But you can also do great things and not necessarily be a decent person, right? Like we've seen that a
mm,
million times as well. So we have to
mm.
remember that humans are very interesting characters across the board, and you're not always going to have a perfect person in front of you because it doesn't exist. So that's probably
Well,
part of it.
yeah. Do you know, as you're talking, Dan, I'm thinking of Oscar Schindler. Now, he was fabulous, a
Mm.
fabulous humanitarian, and he saved hundreds of Jews' lives, but he couldn't keep it in his pants. But that, I'm just being
There you
crude
go.
there, but he
Yeah.
couldn't. That was the
Yeah.
reality of him. He was a dynamic, very
Yeah.
complicated person, as we all are.
Hmm.
And I just felt
Exactly.
there was incumbent on me to say that, given the situation at the moment.
Hmm.
Very,
No, for
very
sure.
applicable, I felt. But kind of moving on to finish
Hmm.
up, Dan, I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
in terms of the timeline and where we are, is it still
Hmm.
retirement? Is it retirement for
Mm.
some? Or is it now, are we in a
Mm.
transition period? Because I'm thinking about the Visa's second half program, and that's kind of being supported with Karen Carney and Kim Little.
Hmm.
So they're
Hmm.
looking at specifically helping female footballers prepare for careers beyond football through
Yeah.
mentoring,
Hmm.
networking,
Hmm.
training,
Hmm.
financial literacy, media skills,
Yeah.
leadership, work experience,
Hmm.
and internship. Are we at retirement or is it transitional? Is it for some or is it for all? Thoughts, Dan?
I think it's transitional um, because a lot of footballers will now see opportunities beyond playing that they maybe didn't have 10 years ago, even. Um, because you're able to see it now, right? You're able to see the visibility is there. You're able to see female pundits or people on the comms or in coaching or in like administration type of roles within football. And that's if you want to stay in the football realm. Obviously, if you want to branch out of that and do something completely different, that is a whole nother topic of conversation. Do you have the education to do it? All of these things. But in
Mm,
terms of football, I think it's more of a transition and all of these things that are being put in place to realize that there are those opportunities there, and it's just a matter of do we have the skill? Do you have the skills to be able to do them, or can you obtain those skills through some of these programs in order to move into a different realm if you want to stay in the game? Because a lot of them do want to stay in the game. That is their passion, right? And just because you stop playing doesn't mean you have to give up your passion for working in the football space. And there's so many opportunities now. I mean, you mentioned Lucy Bronze and Kim Little. A side note, what I wanted to say is both of them are actually the player representatives on the PFA board already. So that's something that right now, while they're still playing, they're doing that. But who knows what opportunity that opens up when they do decide to step away from playing. They could work for the PFA. You don't know, right? Because that opportunity exists now.
absolutely. And I'm also thinking about Beth Mead and Viviana Miedemar
Hmm.
because both of them now
Hmm.
have gone through their B award, UEFA B, and UEFA A
Hmm.
in terms of coaching.
Coaching.
Now, it has
Yeah.
to be said that Beth Mead, that she has
Hmm.
an emotional intelligence. She's very much people
Hmm.
orientated. She makes people laugh. She's very caring and supportive. But Mida Mar's got the brain.
Hmm.
She's got the footballer's brain, hasn't she? The player's brain there and the game brain.
Hmm.
Do they have
Yeah.
something? I've not heard anything. Can they bring their collective skills together to form some kind of coaching academy or foundation? I don't know. It's a possible
Hmm.
opportunity for the future, isn't it?
Yeah. And the good thing is also is the English FA is supporting these programs to bring female footballers into the coaching programs. And I think it was Neve Charles is also doing it as well. And I think when she first started it, Zakira Musovic also did it prior to her leaving England. Um, the a lot of the clubs, the bigger clubs especially, are helping them. So there's like a certain amount of hours you have to put in at youth level, like all of these sorts of things that
Mm,
that make you qualify for the next level, right? And a lot of
mm,
them are able to do that at their clubs because you have academies, right? The youth academies, so they
absolutely.
can go in and spend time in the youth academies and do that. So they're supporting them this way. And the coaching one is fantastic because we do need more female coaches. But I think it's interesting that the automatic default is like, oh, well, maybe this person should be a coach. That's not going to
Yeah,
work
yeah,
for
yeah.
everybody. So what I also did was I looked at what other opportunities in football exist, and I came up with a couple of interesting ones. So for people who don't want to be coaches, or maybe just it's not their thing in the slightest, obviously we know there's comms and punditry, comms and punditry opportunities that will pop up everywhere. Frank Kirby, fantastic example. I hope she's a pundit for the rest of her non-playing career because she's fantastic at it. Um, but if that's also not your thing, because not everyone can keep up with the game and dictate it like that, an interesting one was former England goalkeeper and former Chelsea player Carly Telford. She actually works as the commercial manager at Chelsea. So she stayed with the club and has been provided this opportunity. And what she does is she secures partnerships, private investors, um, and that sort of thing. And she really works on that side of it. So she's really driving the commercial side of the game as well, because she's looking at the marketing side and all of these sorts of things that exist. And that's a different opportunity too. Some of these players might retire at their clubs, retire from playing, and might look at opportunities internally as well. And who knows who's already being kind of primed and set up for those sorts of things.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Dan. Isn't it in the club's interest to retain all this rich
Yes.
experience that they have? And not just that.
Hmm.
I mean, if it's
Hmm.
a simple case, that they can go on a training course or do a degree or do something to
Hmm.
bolster these skills because, maybe there's just a little bit of gap in between their experience and what they require to do something within the club, then so be it. Surely
Yeah.
invest in that.
100%. And there's so much, right? Like I was just doing a quick little look at. So there's things like that, like commercial management. I really do hope we retain Lucy Bronze in some regard at
Yeah,
Chelsea because I think she's an incredible voice for the game. But I was also, one of the people that popped into my brain immediately, two people actually. So Bianca Rieck, who used to play for Germany and Bayern Munich, she's actually now the sporting director at Bayern Munich. So she worked her way into the ranks of that. So she's their sole sporting director. And sporting director are the people who are in charge of recruitment and squad development, player development, all of that sort of thing. So that's her title. That's an incredible role. And as a female footballer, she's now involved in what all that looks like to continue building the Bayern women's program. And then
it's
also
amazing.
Nadine Kessler, yeah, another German international. After she was forced out of the game with her injury, she transitioned into sports administration, and now she's the managing director at UEFA for women's football. So she took her experience and said, I'm going to work for the entire governing body of European football. And she's at the helm of so much of what you're seeing in UEFA's development as well. Incredible breadth of knowledge. But all of these opportunities exist. And I think as the women's game continues to grow, you're going to see some of these really big names step into massive leadership roles, whether it's at UEFA, whether it's at FIFA, whether it's in the England FA or their home country FA. Who knows, 10 years down the
Mm.
road, Viv Miedema might be spearheading the Dutch Federation. You don't know, right? Like there's so
Yeah,
much opportunity that
absolutely.
exists.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I've just picked out the coaching aspect because I'm very aware that they've done both their UEFA B and A
Yeah,
awards. It was just
completely. Oh,
interesting
yeah.
where that might lead. But I
Yeah.
agree with you. We just
Hmm.
shouldn't simply see it in terms of punditry or going into coaching.
Yeah.
As we've already pointed out and explored, there are many, many different
Hmm.
opportunities. And I think it is about
Tons.
building a transitional ecosystem for that to happen. But it sounds as though it's already
Hmm.
in motion, to be honest with you, Dan. So, Dan, is that the
Agree.
50? It's very fascinating. We're at the 50
Hmm.
minute mark. Um,
Yes.
because so many viewers have said, your viewers, not your
Hmm.
viewers,
Hmm.
have said about, open it up to your side of the pond.
Hmm.
Do you want to, is it
Yes.
the NSL? Looking at
NFL.
the,
Yep.
yeah, looking at the form, the
Yeah.
foundation, the formation of the NSL. And then perhaps I can do
Hmm.
Man City. the week after that?
Yeah, let's do that. So next episode, let's look at that, and what I can do, Bev, is on the side, we will chat a little bit about it so we can have more of an, it's not just me yapping about what's going on, so I can get you kind of
No, no, no.
on the other side of it as well. But yeah, I don't want to like just yap your ear off for 40 minutes. But we'll talk about that one. Yeah, because I would love for people to hear how this came to be because it really is an incredible story. Again, off the back of one woman's relentless efforts to bring us a domestic league finally to this country. And then we will get into a Man City profile because I'm really excited to kind of turn the tables on you this time.
Why not? Well, and it makes sense,
Why
Dan, really,
not?
because it makes sense, really, Dan,
Yeah.
because that at that point it won't be far for the WSL and WSL2 starting, and
Yeah,
obviously Man City are the
I know.
current holders, aren't they? So, you know, that makes
Hmm.
it fits beautifully, I think, in terms of timing.
Let's do that. Yeah, it sounds great. Before we head out, Bev, do you have any hot takes for this week?
Um, I would say I really want to push the thing that I'm thinking about what's happened over here in terms of Jason Arday. It's a very complex situation.
Hmm.
I would
Hmm.
really encourage people to think critically and creatively. Things are not always what they seem.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are, but sometimes, most of the
Hmm.
time, they aren't. And that, please, when you're looking at the players, you know, look at the whole picture, dig a little bit deeper. That's
Hmm.
my take. That's my
Yeah.
hot take.
Mm, hot take. Okay, I have one, and it's more of like a pet peeve actually. So I was watching the NWSL last night. It was Angel City, which is the team in Los Angeles, and the Washington Spirit, owned by one Michelle Kang. They were playing in Los Angeles, and this is a uniquely American thing. So I'm just going to go on my rant about American broadcasting. There was an interview midway through the game, and I don't understand why they did that. I can't stand it. Stop doing that.
Oh
I want to watch the
gosh.
game. I don't want to hear from the owner of Angel City or whoever it was. That's fantastic. Maybe leave that for the halftime. When there's halftime, you can go review what happened in the first half for 5 minutes and speak to someone for another 5 minutes. Please stop putting interviews in the middle of games. It's annoying. That's more of my, it's not even a hot take, it's just my rant. That's my football rant for today. Don't do that. It really bothered me. And it happens a lot in the NWSL, and I can't stand it. Stop doing that.
Dan doesn't like
So
it.
there's
Have
that.
you heard?
Yeah.
She doesn't like it at
Ah,
all. Well, thank you
like really just
everybody for
irked me.
listening. Thank you everybody for
Absolutely.
listening
Yes.
in. We really always do appreciate it.
Yes.
Please do get in touch. We love to hear from you. It's
Mhm.
not just our opinions,
Yes.
it takes lots of different opinions.
Completely. Yes. Thank you, everyone. We really hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will be back next week for a little deep dive on the Northern Super League. Have a great week, Bev.
Okay, and you too, Dan. Take care. Bye.
Bye.